Hi friends! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sasha. Today we're doing a very cozy book review. It is still in the morning. I'm still in my pajamas because I have to go to the library to return this book. I finished Lore of the Wilds. Look at that cover. Oh my gosh. I finished this book very late last night, and I wanted to do a really quick review here on my YouTube channel before I have to return it. As always with my book reviews, I'm much more eloquent and my thoughts are put together a lot better when I write. So if you want a more in-depth, concise, succinct thought process and book review, please check out my blog, readwithme.sashamarie.com. That's where you'll be able to find this review. I wrote it this morning before I started this video so that all my thoughts would hopefully flow a little bit better. So let's talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I think of this book overall. So, Lore of the Wilds was one of my most anticipated books. I found out that it was BIPOC, it was people of color as the characters, it was written by a person of color, it is a fae, fantasy, romantasy story is what it is being quoted as on Goodreads when I went to check this morning, and that was all that I knew going into it. The second thing I found out about the book was obviously the cover, and I was sold. I was so sold. I love fae stories. I love fantasy stories, and I was just really excited to dive in to new characters and a new fantasy land. What I didn't know is that the title is actually the name of our main character. So our main character is Lore. She is a human who lives in the Fae realm, and humans aren't entirely sure how they ended up here. It's sort of been lost to time and translation what actually happened. There are a bunch of different oral histories and tales that have been passed down from generation to generation as to how humans came to be in these Fae lands. But because humans weren't always here, they are the oppressed group in this story. They are treated very poorly, from something just like a snide remark all the way up to being kept as pets or slaves or just murdered and hunted and, assaulted for sport. So humans are the lowest on the totem pole here. We learn later on that there is also a hierarchy between different faes, between different creatures, and that sort of becomes an aspect of the story overall, is just the oppression of the humans and the faes, and the different sort of factions between faes as well. When we start off, we meet Lore in her family's apothecary, and we also learn that she works and lives in an orphanage as well. And she's an extremely intelligent human who can read and write in the Fae language, which is a really coveted skill that not many humans possess. And there is a Fae of noble standing who finds out about her talents and sort of forces her to come with them into the Fae lands. Before I get any further, I did want to mention the opening line to this novel. I'll actually, since I still have it, read it to you right now. It's possibly my favorite opening line of a book I've read in the past, 5 years. I immediately stopped what I was reading and was just like, oh my god. Okay, so I'm not going to read. It has Lore's full name, but I don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I'm just going to say her first name. So chapter 1. Lore collected stories like the raven that lived above the apothecary hoarded shiny pebbles. I love that so much. I relate to that so much. I love that so much. I think that's just such a good start to this story, and I fully expected the rest of the novel to carry that sort of tone and excitement and adventure. We'll get to it. So Lore is brought to these Fae lands and is tasked with cleaning out this library that no one has been able to enter for centuries. They want her to look for magical texts and bring them to them, and I'm not going to go into much else after that. because this is where the pacing became really a much bigger issue than I realized it would be. We had a lot of instances of time passing or events happening off the page, and it would either be inherently described as like weeks and weeks had gone by or months and months had gone by. It would be said like that, or some of the most, like, in my opinion, egregious instances of this happening, it would be like lore in the middle of a plan, and we're like, okay, she's maybe gonna try and do this thing. We flip to the next page, she's in the middle of doing that thing, and we have no idea how she got from point A of like having this idea to point B where she's not only executed the idea, but she's in the middle of it. It was very jarring in a lot of instances like that. I also think because so much was happening off the page in terms of time passing and different things like that, we didn't get as connected as we should have to the love interests in the way that would have warranted their sort of chemistry and reactions and interactions together. So I think in some parts of the novel, the love interests and even like the one spicy scene that happened at the end kind of came out of left field and didn't feel very authentic because we didn't see those connections develop as the reader. I will also say I believe this is promoted and marketed as an adult romantasy book, and it's sort of being set up as a why choose, but there was one spicy scene towards the end, like I said, came out of nowhere, and I think this novel overall might have been better suited for a young adult audience if they took out that one scene and just left it as like sort of a fantasy. It felt much more cozy fantasy than anything else to me. There were a handful of really violent moments. I would say 10% of this novel had any sort of graphic violence, and it felt so much more violent because the rest of the novel was so slice of life and cozy and learning how to do magic and pretty low stakes. And it was kind of jarring to all of a sudden be like, he chopped his head off with the sword and it rolled across the forest floor. It was like, whoa, like where we were just chilling. We were doing some magic, we were collecting some plants, and now all of a sudden someone's covered in blood. Like it kind of came out of nowhere, just like the spicy scene. And I think that's again a bit of an editing, pacing problem. The story overall left me wanting more because so much of it seemed to happen off the page. It was like, were things cut down to fit a word count, or was the story not entirely developed enough in editing? I don't know what I don't know what was going on, but it is apparent that this is a debut novel. And I will say I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because there's always room for growth, but I do wish that this had been polished a little bit more before it had been published because there's so much potential for this story here and these characters, and we just didn't get to see what this could have been. And that was a little disappointing. I think overall, this would be better in young adult if they took out that last spicy scene. I think this could have used a little more editing on the pacing and the development of the plot and the romance. I said it was low stakes, and despite having the oppressor oppressed sort of narrative theme running through it, I couldn't even feel the urgency in that because it was so just sort of choppy, I think. And that's why it just felt really cozy and like slice of life. And I think that is a strength of this writer and of the author in the novel. And I hope that that will carry through in future novels because I think that is where they excel. And I don't think that this story needs to be like traditional fantasy with these battles and with all of this gore or violence or smut. I think cozy fantasy has a place and a purpose and people who love to read it. And I would hope that the author and their team would maybe take that direction for the next novel. But I really don't know because it ended on quite a big cliffhanger. There was a very big reveal on like the last page of the book, which again was a weird sort of pacing thing. That was revealed so late, kind of. I feel like things like that are revealed like 20 to 10% before the end, not on like the actual last page. So that was a little jarring and strange. And it wasn't a happily ever after. For sure, not that, because it is setting it up for what's going to happen in the next book. So those are my thoughts on Lore of the Wilds. I honestly don't know if I would pick up book 2. I think I would probably check the reviews of that one to see if any of the things that I mentioned have been worked on or improved from book 1 to book 2, because I didn't read any reviews for this book before I picked it up, but I wrote my review. Then I went and read the reviews on Goodreads and was quite surprised that so many people had the same feelings I did, when all I see on TikTok and Instagram and social media is everyone raving about this book. And I think potentially we're all just raving about the cover because it is stunning. And I don't know that a lot of people have had a chance to actually read it yet. So that is my review. I'm putting it out there. I wish I had liked this more because this was one of my most anticipated reads since it was announced. What a bummer. But I'm still going to give it probably 3 stars because overall I think the story is good and like the bones of it are there. It can be developed into something really cool. So that's where I'm going to leave you with this. I am actually on my way to the library. There's another series I've started recording, but will not be posting anytime soon, probably, where I'm going through my NetGalley backlog, and I've ordered some books from the library to help me do that. So I'm on my way to return this, pay a 60-cent fine, because my 3 other books were a day late, and they did end up finding me after. So my account is still delinquent. I have to pay my fine and then pick up my other books. So we'll definitely have more book content on the channel because I have a lot of reviews I need to be doing. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this sort of cozy. I figured cozy fantasy deserved a cozy setting. And I'm also just so tired that I didn't want to get dressed yet. So cozy review. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!
I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.